Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. An outage hits Windows operating systems, causing disruptions of flights, banking and telecom services across the world. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says that one of its defective updates caused the outage. After Trump's lengthy acceptance speech for the Republican ticket, attention now shifts to the incumbent President Biden, with calls getting louder for him to withdraw from the Democratic ticket. In France, the Macron ally, Ron Pivet, wins a surprise re-election as the National Assembly Speaker. Protests continue in Bangladesh against jobs quota system. The United Nations has urged that students should not be harmed. A major cyber outage hit several IT systems across the world, including India, Australia, Germany, the United States, the UK, and other countries as well. On Friday, this affected many critical services. Later, CrowdStrike CEO informed that the issue had been identified, isolated, and a fix had been deployed. Airlines, health systems, and emergency services were among those disrupted due to the outage. The outage was possibly due to a failure of CrowdStrike, a cybersecurity platform that provides security solutions for Microsoft Windows. However, it was not immediately clear whether all reported outages were linked to CrowdStrike problems or there were other issues at play. Microsoft said that the services were improving as mitigation actions were progressing. In Europe, in the Schiphol Airport, Berlin Airport, as well as London's Gatwick, Edinburgh airports, as well as other airports, they all seem to have been affected by this outage. Queues piled up in France's Orly Airport. The Swiss air traffic control company Skyguide said that as a precautionary measure, it had temporarily reduced capacity in Swiss air traffic by 30%. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that German security institutions are working with their international partners on this outage, IT outage, that impacted air travel, banking, and a number of other companies and institutions. And DD India's Ross Cullen has sent us this report from Paris on the impact of the global outage in France.
We have seen the turnstiles at Disneyland Paris go out of order. Now that is really causing a problem. It's in the middle of the school holidays on a scorching day here, well over 30 degrees here in Paris today, causing problems there at Disneyland Paris, but the turnstiles are now back on. Air France, the national carrier, they also did announce that they had suffered some of their problems, serious operational issues due to the outage. Lille Airport, well, the check-in desks for the online, they went down, so everyone was having to check in by hand. There were also queues, as you pointing out, at the second biggest airport in the country at Orly. And Orange, one of the biggest mobile operators in Europe, did also announce that they had some service interruptions due to the IT outage. Now, in terms of the impact on the Olympics, it's likely to be travel where there is a bit of an effect today, because the delegations, athletes, dignitaries, some of the visitors are already starting to arrive. Orly Airport will be one of those key entry points for people coming into the Olympics. In terms of the cyber security and the cyber side of this, not as much of an impact as we are likely to see on the travel arrangements of people coming into Paris ready for the Olympics, which get underway officially with the sporting action next Wednesday.
In India, the outage caused widespread flight delays across airports. The outage hit booking and check-in services of several airlines, including Indigo, Akasa Airlines and SpiceJet. They are currently collaborating with Microsoft to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. The Mumbai airport has been the hardest hit, with the impact at Delhi airport remaining minimal. And most disruptions occurred at Terminal 2. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya reports.
A massive Microsoft outage has disrupted computer systems worldwide, affecting flights, banks, stock exchanges, payment systems and emergency services. The Indian government has taken note of the cyber outage and is in talks with Microsoft to find a resolution. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has released an advisory regarding the situation. Additionally, the Computer Emergency Response Team, or CERT, of the central government has provided guidance on how to address the issue. In India, flight delays were reported across airports, leading to long queues. The outage affected booking and checking in services for several airlines as well, including Indigo, Akasa Airlines and SpiceJet. This unprecedented Microsoft outage has not only disrupted the global operations, but has also significantly impacted services in the country. Indian government, through the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and CERT, is actively working to mitigate the issue. With camera person Ajit, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
India's Electronics and Information Technology Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said that the government is in touch with Microsoft in the ongoing global outage. The minister wrote on social media, and I quote him, MIT, that's the Ministry of Information Technology and Electronics, is in touch with Microsoft and its associates regarding the global outage. The reason for this outage has been identified and updates have been released to resolve the issue. CERT is issuing a technical advisory. NIC network is not affected. And the former Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, said that Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Suite are used by millions of Indians. Thus, any outage on this platform disrupts the business and operations of many companies. So he hoped that Microsoft restored their services at the earliest.
It is certainly something that is of great concern because number one, Microsoft 365 and the Microsoft Suite is used by millions of Indians, small businesses, big businesses, individual users, hospitals, and therefore any outage on this platform it disrupts the business and 24/7 operations of many companies, and like I said, many individuals and small businesses. So I hope Microsoft works on this and restores the service very quickly.
Donald Trump is now formally the nominee of the Republican Party for the President of the United States of America, that election. And on Friday, at the end of the 4-day convention of his party, he accepted the nomination with a vow to make America great again, as well as called upon his party workers to ensure that he wins in November.
Former US President Donald Trump, during his acceptance speech, invoked God for saving his life from an assassination bid. It was an emotional, touching 90 minutes plus longest acceptance speech in the history of the United States.
When I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really hard on my right ear, I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet, and moved. I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that.
The former US President Trump touched upon many important topics affecting United States as well as the world. Hitting hard on the situation of conflict all around the globe, the Republican candidate said that he will end the war between Russia and Ukraine after his victory in November this year. He also said he will work with Israel to end the war with Hamas and address the hostage crisis.
Nobody can believe what's happening. War is now raging in Europe and the Middle East. A growing specter of conflict hangs over Taiwan, Korea, the Philippines, and all of Asia. And our planet is teetering on the edge of World War III. And this will be a war like no other war because of weaponry. The weapons are...
The Republican president nominee, who is poised to get some sympathy votes too due to assassination bid on him, took heavily on illegal immigration and inflation.
I will end the illegal immigration crisis by closing our border and finishing the wall, most of which I've already built.
He promised massive tax cut for the workers and provide relief to middle class in his country.
And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions.
In his acceptance speech, Trump hailed his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, and his wife, who is of Indian origin. He also thanked his wife, Melania Trump, and all his family members in the aftermath of his assassination bid and boosting his spirit to fight. He said that his opponent, Joe Biden, is zero and has been running a weak government for the last 4 years. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
The walls appear to be closing in on Joe Biden. The US president is facing the strongest calls yet to step aside and withdraw his candidacy for a second term. He currently is isolating because he's tested positive for COVID-19. Benji Hayer has been following a difficult 24 hours for the president.
The avalanche of pressure on Joe Biden to stand down has picked up speed significantly as concerns grow over his health, age and fitness for office. Lawmakers at the very top of the Democratic Party, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, are making it known, albeit through media leaks, that they think President Biden has little or no chance of beating Donald Trump. Even Barack Obama has pitched in, reportedly telling allies that his once vice president needs to seriously consider the viability of his candidacy. Weeks on from a stumbling debate performance, recent polls show nearly 2/3 of Democrat voters believe Biden should remove himself from the presidential race. The White House and Biden's campaign remain undeterred. So far, the 81-year-old has served up a temperate, stubborn defiance. But if you take it as a given that there is dissent at the very top of the party, the president's days as a candidate could well be numbered. He is the figurehead of a party disunited, a stark contrast from Republicans who are falling in line behind their nominee following Trump's close brush with death. Benji Hayer in Washington reporting for DD India.
The sleepy UK city of Leeds witnessed a not-so-usual night when angry rioters set a double-decker bus on fire. They smashed windows and overturned a police car. The unrest is reportedly against the actions by a local childcare agency that separated children from their parents and placed them in childcare homes. Security has been increased in the area, with West Yorkshire Police saying it was dealing with the serious disorder incident by deploying appropriate specialist public order resources. The Yorkshire Police has promised a full investigation into all criminal offences, including damage to vehicles from the fire. The UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper took to social media and condemned the violence. She posted, and I quote, "I am appalled at the shocking scenes and attacks on police vehicles and public transport in Leeds. Disorder of this nature has no place in our society. My thanks go to West Yorkshire Police and their response. I am being kept regularly updated," unquote. And still to come here on DD India Live. France's new parliament meets. The hung house looks for means to form a majority government. An update on phase 2 of the Khelo India Rising Talent Identification or Kirti program.
While there's still enough food for everyone on the planet, food shortages are a real problem. Let's take a look at the factors causing this and what can be done to save our food.
What we host now, it's called Farm School. One of the goals is to teach them agriculture so that 50 years from now, when there's so much change in climate, they don't have to deal with learning two new skills.
We empower women who are really poor and who don't have too much economic empowerment to eat better.
We adopt this strategy in our product. The volatile compounds induce the defence mechanism and help to prolong shelf life by 2 more days, so it's purely natural.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Mark Lynn. France's lower house sat for the first time since the inconclusive election on July 7, left the country with a hung parliament and no certainty over the composition of a new government. The speaker, Yael Privé, who is from President Macron's party, was re-elected to that same role. DD India correspondent Ross Cullen sent us this report.
French MPs convened for the first time on Thursday since the general election earlier this month produced no clear result, with no one party gaining a majority, meaning that France has a hung parliament and also currently a caretaker government. Now, one of the first jobs for the new and returning MPs on Thursday was to vote for the position of Speaker of the National Assembly. And there will likely now follow weeks of political discussion between the parties to work out if there is a roadmap to form a future government. Now, a lot of the attention will be focused on the left wing. 4 leftist parties ran under the umbrella ticket in the election of the new Popular Front. They were the Greens, the Socialists, the Communists and the France Unbowed Party, and they are the largest bloc in Parliament, and so they are likely to form the dominant force of any possible future coalition. The caretaker administration here in France will remain in place for at least the duration of the Olympic Games, which kick off in the French capital next week. Ross Cullen in Paris, reporting for DD India.
And going back to our top story now, we are joined by DD India correspondent Nick Harper, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. on the impact of the global outage on Microsoft Windows operating system in the United States. Nick, what was the extent of disruption in the United States? After all, it was largely nighttime there.
That's right, Mark. We have, however, seen a huge impact here in the US. It's obviously been felt globally, including in India, with flights cancelled. Here in the US, the majority of all of those flights, about 1,200 or so, those cancellations taking place here in the US. The major airlines like Delta, American Airlines, all saying that they have experienced significant problem. And that's led to cancellations, but it's also meant to delays for other flights, other smaller companies here operating in the US. But it's not just the travel industry here in the US that's struggling. We've also seen it impacting banking and healthcare. Healthcare in particular, we've seen problems with hospitals in the US having to cancel emergency surgeries, and in the state of Alaska, overnight, we saw the 911 emergency phone line that people would call if they want to have an ambulance or perhaps the fire service or the police. That in itself was not working, so people were not able to get through to emergency services overnight. It is a huge problem, and although the companies are saying that to a large extent they've managed to deploy those fixes, there is that concern that we will see knock-on effects for days still to come.
Right. Also, Nick, how has this affected Microsoft's credibility?
Well, that's it, Mark. I mean, the reputational damage to the two companies, Microsoft, but also CrowdStrike, the cybersecurity firm that works on that software that it uses in conjunction with Microsoft. I mean, there's going to be huge reputational damage for both companies. We have seen the head of CrowdStrike in the last hour coming out to apologize. He was speaking to NBC News here. He said he was deeply sorry for the impact that it caused to customers and travelers worldwide. He did say that it would take some time for all systems to recover. And it's not just the reputational damage, there is also a monetary aspect as well. CrowdStrike is based here in the US, in Austin, Texas. It is also listed on the markets here in the US. Markets due to open in about 40 minutes time. At one point, CrowdStrike in pre-market trading was trading 20% down, which equates to about a $16 billion loss. It's recovered that slightly, it's about 11 or 12% down, but that still runs into billions of dollars, somewhere in the region of about $10 billion, could be wiped off the company when markets open in about 40 minutes time. The damage for both companies, I think, is going to certainly be felt during the trading day, but it's that longer term problem, especially if they're not able to get things fully resolved and fully resolved quickly in the next hours or days.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Nick Harper, joining us from Washington, D.C. India's Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, had a conversation with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister on Friday. The leaders spoke on further developing bilateral relationship between the two countries. The Ministry of External Affairs said that the Finance Minister of Ukraine discussed issues of bilateral interest.
Afternoon, External Affairs Minister spoke to the Foreign Minister of Ukraine and discussed bilateral issues of mutual interest. As far as the question about Yeshi, you had a related question on Ukraine.
Another ferry flight of Air India, AI 1179, has departed from Mumbai to ferry stranded passengers of the AI 183 flight at the Krasnoyarsk airport of Russia. After it's gone with sufficient food and other essentials as well. The flight AI 183 was operating on the Delhi-San Francisco route. It had to make an emergency landing at Russia's Krasnoyarsk International Airport around midnight local time, citing security concerns. Representatives from the Indian consulate in Moscow have been working with the Russian authorities to provide support to the stranded passengers. A dedicated hotline has also been set up by the operator in case of an inquiry. Bangladesh has continued to simmer, and the death toll too is rising in that country among nationwide protests. 3 people died in Bangladesh on Friday in fresh protests against quotas for government jobs, as telecom links were widely disrupted and television news channels also taken off the air. In fact, authorities had cut some mobile telephone services, as well as that happened on the previous day, and they are trying to quell this unrest. Initially, it was sparked by student anger against controversial quotas, but Friday's wider disruption was not linked, it's not linked to the global cyber outage. The United Nations has urged the Bangladesh government to protect the protesting students demanding quota reforms in the government jobs against any form of threat or violence. India's External Affairs Ministry has urged Indian nationals residing in Bangladesh to follow the advisory issued by the High Commission of India in Dhaka. The Indian community members and the Indian students residing in Bangladesh have been advised to avoid local travel and to minimize their movement outside their living premises. In view of the ongoing situation in Bangladesh, the Indian High Commission in Dhaka has asked people to reach out to the High Commission and Assistant High Commissions at a 24-hour emergency number. In fact, there are more than one number, and this is in case of any emergency or urgency for need of assistance.
As you are aware, there is an unrest, there are protests which are happening there. We have around 8,500 students and somewhere around 15,000 Indian nationals resident in the country. We have issued a travel advisory for people to be in touch with the High Commission and for us to render any assistance that they may need. External Affairs Minister is himself monitoring the situation. The High Commission will be giving regular updates on the situation there. We will also be giving regular updates, and we urge all family members of Indian nationals who reside in Bangladesh to be in touch, follow us for regular updates. We remain committed to provide all possible assistance to our nationals.
India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar addressed the 4th International Climate Summit. It was organized in New Delhi by the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Addressing the event, the Vice President, he said that climate change is a ticking bomb, and if not urgently addressed, it's going to lead to a disaster for the planet. He emphasized on the importance of 3R strategy, that's reduce, reuse and recycle, for the collective battle against climate change to be won.
We have set a target to achieve 50% of its installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy sources by 2030 and achieving net zero by 2070. You will be happy to note India is among lead nations to be working earnestly in this direction. India has set this target and working for it in a significant manner by taking several affirmative steps.
In a bid to promote and facilitate local industries, the Gujarat government organized a Semiconnect 2024 conference at the Mahatma Mandir in Ahmedabad. This happened on Friday, and the event saw the participation of top executives of leading semiconductor supply chain industries globally. Niti Aayog on Thursday launched a report. It's titled Electronics Powering India's Participation in Global Value Chains. And this report extensively analyzes India's electronic sector, emphasizing its potential and challenges. India's electronic sector has experienced rapid growth, reaching US dollars 155 billion in financial year 2023. Production is nearly doubled from US dollars 48 billion in the financial year 2017 to US dollars 101 billion in the financial year 2023. Driven primarily, in fact, by mobile phones, which now constitute 43% of total electronics production. India has significantly reduced its reliance on smartphone imports, now manufacturing 99% domestically. The current value of India's electronics production, it stands impressively at US dollars 101 billion as of the financial year 2023. India's Union Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports, Dr. Mansukh Mandavia, and other members of Parliament participated in a grand opening ceremony of Phase 2 of the Khelo India Rising Talent Identification or Kirti program. And the Khelo India Rising Talent Identification program, it aims to develop an integrated talent identification architecture that's based on modern information and communication technology tools. It's for the best practices globally. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. And also, you can always download that mobile app of ours, both available in iOS and Android platforms. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.